Great, thanks, Jill. As Jill said, my name is Will Murray, and I am the VP of Workday Testing at KanoSmart, and I will be joined today by Tim MacDonald, who is a product specialist for KanoSmart, and Tim will be bringing you through a demonstration of how to test and create a security baseline using KanoSmart. Tim, if you could just move on, please. So what is a security baseline? Well, it's basically who and what a user can access within your Workday tenant. I speak to a lot of Workday customers and I ask them, do you know how security is configured within your tenant? And the majority of the time, if not all, the answer I get is that, you know, we knew it when we went live, but things change so much in security on a weekly basis, even a daily basis, that at that moment in time, it's near impossible to know exactly how your security is configured. So why do you need a security baseline? Well, simply to safeguard your sensitive data, and this can be a daunting task. The last thing you want is for someone to be able to see or do something within your tenant that you cannot undo. An example of this is someone seeing personal information or compensation belonging to a colleague or their manager or even someone higher up the chain. Once this has been seen or done, you know, it's impossible to undo it. And when should you create a security baseline and test this? Well, during implementations, it's very important. Whether it's just about when you're going to go live, so you know that your security is designed and delivered as it should be, or even when you're moving through your testing phases, an example being moving from end-to-end testing into UAT. When you're exposing Workday to a larger audience, you need to make sure that the data that they see during this testing phase is only what they should see. And in production, as I mentioned, security changes on a very, very regular basis within production, and testing to make sure against your baseline that any changes that have been made in your tenant do not have a negative impact on the existing security. What we're going to show you today is a tool called KanoSmart. Now, KanoSmart is the only automated testing tool specifically designed for Workday testing. It comprises of three modules: the KanoSmart HCM and KanoSmart Financials, which are the automated testing of business processes and integrations. But today I'm going to focus on the KanoSmart Security module. Now, this comprises of two separate areas. One is field level testing, so we can test what users can actually see on screen. So an example of this is I should be able to see some of my manager's details. I should not be able to see possibly their compensation, whereas my manager should be able to see my compensation. Or even HR department should be able to see personal data belonging to employees, whereas the employees should not be able to see that personal data of each other's. And secondly, actions. Users should only have access to specific related actions as defined by their security. And we will show you in our demo how we can do that, how you can create a baseline to know what is actually configured and how that can be tested. So KanoSmart, similar to Workday, is a cloud-based application. It can be run against all non-production tenants. So that means you can run it against your implementation tenants, your sandbox tenants, and your sandbox preview tenants. And if you have multiple versions of these tenants, that's no problem. You can run Smart against any number of tenants. We currently have 35 customers worldwide, and this is just a subsection of the Workday customers who are using KanoSmart to assist them with their testing and with security testing. As you can see from this slide, we cover a very broad range of customers, all sizes of organizations across all industries. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Tim to show you exactly how and what can be done using Smart.
Thanks for that, Will. And thanks again for everyone for attending. Just to make you aware today that we will be running some polls, the first of which I wish to show now. Okay, thanks for your participation in the poll. So what is the purpose of this webinar, and what is the security baseline, and how can we assist you with that? This is KanoSmart, and this is the landing screen that you get whenever you first log in. So if I just log into Smart, we will be brought to the My Test Run screen. This is the screen that you'll be brought to when you first log in, and currently we are pointing at a GMS tenant to build up our test cases. But as Will has mentioned, we are able to execute test cases against any non-production tenant. As Will has mentioned, we have two main features within our security module. The first of those is our field level security, which allows you to check who can see what data, and our available action security, which allows us to check who can see what related actions of a particular business object. I'm just going to go straight ahead and create my first test case for the available action security. Whenever I make that selection, what Smart will do is load all of your Workday tenants that are configured to work with Smart. For the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to use the Kanos PT2 tenant. The first thing that we will have to do is authenticate ourselves in Smart, and we do this by clicking this button. The reason for this is as a layer of security. In Smart, we want to ensure that within the wizard, which is completely data-driven, the information that is obtained, you would be able to access within Workday if you were to log in manually. So I'll just provide some valid credentials here and verify myself. Once you've been verified, you will be brought into the available action security wizard, where everything is completely data-driven. And we can start building up our first test case. The first detail that I want to provide here is a test case name. Now I want to build up a test case to check what access Logan has for Alan Dubois, the worker. So the first thing I'll do is update the test case name to say, okay, what is Logan's view of Alan Dubois? I'll then provide a unique test case ID, and then we'll be prompted for the subject worker, and this is the worker that we would want to log in as and check the security of. So if you were performing this test manually, you would log in as Logan to check her security. So within here, I can type Logan and search for her. Smart will then communicate with the tenant in real time and retrieve Logan as our worker. Now within Smart, we have the ability to check the available actions of 3 different types of business objects, so organizations, positions, and workers. I'm just going to build up a test case here for a worker. And you'll notice that once I make the worker selection in the object type dropdown, a new field has appeared. And this is who we want to check Logan's access of. In a similar way to before, all I have to do is then search for my worker. So I'll just provide Alan in there. Smart will then be able to find Alan Dubois in our tenant, and once that has happened, a list of actions will be returned, and this is all of the actions that you would wish to check within your Workday tenant. The first test case that I'm going to build up is going to focus around the compensation core area. So down the left hand side you can see the different core areas, and I can select compensation from that list. What I can then do is add in all the actions in the compensation section to my test case. I can then set the results accordingly based on my knowledge of Logan's security setup. So if I wanted to say that Logan should not have access to the add stock grant related action, I can simply click the toggle here to say I would not expect her to be able to access that action. As Logan is quite a powerful user in our tenant, I'm going to say that she does have the access to that particular action. What I can do then is copy this test case and create a second scenario. And this scenario, I want to focus on Betty Lou. This is a simple task of updating the relevant details within the wizard. So the first thing I'll do is update the test case name to say Betty's view of Alan Dubois, update the test case ID, and then search for Betty Lou as my subject worker. So I'm just going to provide BET in here. What will happen in this instance is there are 3 references to Bet within my Workday tenant. So I can then select Betty Lou from the selection list. I can then amend the results as I'd expect them to be for Betty Lou. So I expect that Betty Lou should not be able to add a stock grant for Alan Dubois, and also that she should not be able to maintain employee stock vesting, and also that she should not be able to request a compensation change. I also have the ability to remove an action from a test case, like so. Once you're happy with the actions that are contained within your test cases, within your test pack, we can then save this test pack. Once it's been saved off, we can use that on an ongoing basis. I'm just going to execute this test pack now. Whenever I click execute, I get a dialog box which allows me to select the tenant that I wish to execute my test case against. So I'm going to select my PT2 tenant. Smart will create the test run and bring you right through to the test run execution. Whilst that's executing, I'll show you a brief video of what's happening whenever we click that execute button. I should highlight at this stage that the test cases being executed in this video are slightly different to the ones we've just built up, and this is for illustrative purposes. So what will happen, Smart will log in and then proxy in as Logan McNeil, who's the subject of our first test case. We'll then search for Alan Dubois, the business object, and if I just pause the video here, you can see down the right-hand side, we have our expected results for this particular security test scenario. In this instance, we expect Logan to be able to access all of the related actions. So Smart will go through one by one and check all of the different actions that we have specified within our scenario and verify that they are indeed present. In this instance, they are. So within Smart, we'd expect a pass to be highlighted. I then have a second test case scenario here, which is for Betty Lou. And then we'll proxy in as Betty Lou. And again, if I just pause the video, we have all our results down the right-hand side. If I continue to play the video, we'll then see a discrepancy noted here. And you can see that there's an error that's been noted on the compensation section. The reason for that, if I just bring it to the right-hand side, is that we expect compensation change to be available within the compensation section, and it's actually not available. So that's a discrepancy that Smart will be able to note whenever we go back to the test case execution. Smart will then continue to execute the remaining scenarios and verify whether or not an action is available. And if I just pause the video again, we can see that the create requisition action, which we didn't expect to be available, actually is available, and Smart will be able to note that whenever we go back into the test case results. So Smart will continue to execute until it has finished checking all of the actions within your test case within your test pack. So whilst that video is playing, our test cases for the scenarios that we built up in the wizard have executed. And you can see that we have our 2 scenarios that have executed. So if I verify the results here, you can see that the first scenario has been marked as passed, and we can investigate why exactly that is the case. I can drill down into this test case, and you can see this is where we are checking the access of Logan McNeil on Alan Dubois. And in here, Smart has performed all of the checks, and the expected results have matched the actual result, and all the results have been marked as passed. Therefore, the result on the test run level is marked as passed. In this second scenario, we have a failure, and again we can investigate why that is the case. And in here you can see again all the checks have been performed, and we're able to then see what exactly that failure was about. So any failure with SMART in Available Action Security will give a screenshot, and that's of Workday at the moment in time whenever the failure was encountered. So you can see in this instance, we didn't expect the assign future payment plans action to be available, but it actually is available, and SMART will capture that within a screenshot. And that is done for all their other test scenarios within this particular pack. Now, SMART is capable of handling much more complex scenarios than this, and this is where I would like to introduce the concept of the baseline. Now, the baseline, as Will has said, is retrieving the current security in a tenant. So if I go back to create an Available Action Security test, I'll be brought back into the wizard. I can go through and provide all my test case details again, the test case name, the test case ID, the name of the worker that I want my subject to be. Again, I'm going to use Logan. I'm going to select worker again and just specify Alan. For this particular test case scenarios, I want to focus on the benefits and personal data core areas. So if I just navigate to benefits and add the test cases into my pack, what I'll then be able to do is click this button here, and this is our baseline button. So this is the button that's going to be able to retrieve the current security setup for Logan based around the benefits core area. If I click this button, SMART will communicate with my KanoSmart PT2 tenant and be able to retrieve the current security setup in the benefits area. So you can see that my results have been updated accordingly. I want to do the exact same for personal data here. Again, I'll add the personal data test cases into my pack and click the baseline button. And SMART will return the baseline within a period of time. And again, you can see that the results have been updated based on the current security setup of Logan in the KanoSmart PT2 tenant. Again, I want to execute this pack, and again, we could execute this against a number of different tenants, whether they be implementation or sandbox. So what we could effectively do is compare the baseline between different tenants. I'm just going to execute this against the P22 tenant and verify that the results are exactly the actual equals as expected, and we get all passes. At this stage, I'd just like to run another poll. Okay, thanks for your participation again. So once the test pack has been executed, you can see then that we get 100% pass, and that's because our scenario that we built up, all the actuals were the same as what we expected. Now again, SMART's much more capable of building up baselines than this, and we can go back to our wizard to show an even more complex scenario. Again, I'll just provide the relevant details, so a test case name, a test case ID, the subject worker, so our HR partner, Logan McNeil, and then select the worker object again. I'm just going to search for Alan again and retrieve the worker from the tenant. Now in this particular scenario, I want to check all of the available actions within the Workday tenant. So in order to do that, when on the All Actions section, I can simply click my checkbox, and all the actions will be added to my particular test case. And what we can simply do then is copy this particular test case and test further rules. So if I want to check the absence partner view of Alan Dubois, I can update the test case name, the test case ID, the subject worker, in this case it's Maria Cardoza. So I'll search for Maria and select her from our list. And I'm going to copy this test case again and create a test case for our security partner. Update the ID again and update the worker to be Steve Morgan. Once that worker has been retrieved, I can then grab the baseline for all of these test cases that I've just provided into my pack. So this button, which you would probably recognize from before, allows you to grab the baseline for all of the core areas that we have selected within all of our test cases. So it's a real quick way to grab your current security setup. If I just click that, Smart will then be able to retrieve the baseline as it is for our HR partner, our absence partner, and our security partner. And you can see that once the baseline has been returned, the results have been updated accordingly. And if I just click into the absence partner view, you can see that the results vary slightly to the security partner view. What I can then do is execute this pack and again execute this against the Canos PT2 tenant. Smart will again create the test run and bring us in directly to that test run. And for one last time, I'd like to run one more poll. Okay, so thanks again for your participation. And once that test case has executed successfully, you'll get a test results screen like so. So you can see that all our tests have been ran and passed because the actual results were exactly what we expected. Now, we mentioned earlier our field level permissions, and I just want to touch upon that in a minute. But what I want to show you at this stage is how easily you can then re-execute these test cases. So this is the test run that we just executed. And what I can do is select the re-execute option in order to run this again. Now, I could pick any tenant here and compare the baselines between different tenants. But I have made some security changes in a tenant, and I want to check whether or not those changes have impacted my security baseline. So I can make those changes and then rerun this pack and verify whether or not any of my security has been adversely affected by those changes. So I'll just verify that now. Now, as I said, I wanted to delve into our field level permission security as well. The field level baseline packs are built up in a very similar way to the available action security. So I'm not going to show you the wizard for that. But what I will show you is how Smart handles the field level execution. So I've pre-executed a test run here that I'll show you. And you can see in here that we have again performed multiple checks whereby we are checking the HR partner's view of Alan Dubois. So that's checking what sensitive data can Logan see off of the Alan Dubois object. Again, we can drill down into this particular test case, and you can see all the different fields that have been checked as part of this particular test case. And in this instance, I'm focusing around personal data and compensation, so this really sensitive data in your tenant. In this instance, all of the expected results are met with the actuals, so Smart has highlighted a pass. Failures are handled in exactly the same way with field level permissions. The only difference with field level permissions is that we would not return a screenshot, and that's for security reasons. We obviously don't want to show sensitive data within a screenshot of a failed test case. Now, once you have built up your test packs, there may be a need to amend these from time to time, And we can do this very easily with our test case management. So if I click test case management here, you can see, number one, that we have a number of packs within this here. And this is great because you can then launch a variety of different packs within one test run and build up a full regression suite. But if you do need to amend your test pack as you made some security changes, you can simply load that test pack and update the details as required. So say, for example, I'd expect Betty now to be able to access the request compensation change action off of Alan Dubois. I can simply amend that result, expected result, and click Save. And that pack will then be saved for further use. Now, as I said, the true power of this is that then you can launch a variety of different packs, both available action security and field permissions, in one large test run. I've pre-executed one of these to show you exactly how Smart handles high volume. So if I go back to my test runs, and you can see down here, I have my full security regression run. And straight away, you can see there's been just over 1,200 test case scenarios executed. And at a glance, you can see that there's 2 failures within that particular test run. Again, I can drill down in and see exactly what's happened within this test run. So number one, you can see there's a number of different checks against supervisory orgs, workers, and available actions, field permissions. And you get the high-level overview up here where you can see there's 1, 2, 0, 3 passed and 2 failures. Now, if you were to try and find the 2 failures within that long list, it might be a bit more difficult, but Smart makes life easy. And I can simply click on the field here, and straight away, I can bring up the 2 failures. So it's a really quick way to find out where exactly those security flaws are within your Workday tenant. Now, what we can then do is re-execute these packs on an ongoing basis. So what our clients do at the minute is they actually rerun their full regression packs on a regular basis, whether it be weekly or daily, in order to ensure that their security hasn't been impacted by the security configuration changes that they've made. It's obviously quite a scary time making those changes, and by using something like Smart, you can verify that your security has not been adversely impacted. So what I can do is I can go back down to my test run, click re-execute. Again, I can update the tenant of execution if need be. What I'm going to do is just schedule this test run to execute next week. So within Smart, we actually have the ability to delay the execution of test runs. So I'll just provide a new test run name, select later for our execution. And then what I can do is select the date that I want to execute this on. So if I select the 10th of August, which is next Monday, I can then say that I want this test pack to kick off at midday next Monday. If I OK that, Smart will start to create the test run. And you can see then that that has been scheduled for execution next Monday at midday. And this is really the true power of Smart, is executing those high-level volume of tests with a number of clicks of a button in a very easy manner.
Great, thanks Tim. I'm conscious that it's now right on the dot for finishing the webinar. We have had some questions and we will definitely get back to the people who've asked them after this webinar. I just don't want to keep anyone any longer than we should do. If you do need to contact us, please reach out to myself or Tim. Our contact details are on screen there, or also smart@kanos.com. We'll also get it. So once again, I'd like to thank you all for attending today. If you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us and we'll get back to you very quickly on them.
Thank you very much, Tim and Will, for your presentations. And I'd like to add my thanks for everyone for attending today's webinar. Once you leave the webinar, Do you have a Workday security configuration baseline? If not, why not? You will receive a survey on the presentation, and we'd really appreciate if you could complete that and provide your feedback for us. You'll also receive a follow-up email within 24 to 48 hours with a link to view a recording of today's webinar. On behalf of KanoSmart and our presenters, thank you for joining us today, and please do enjoy the rest of your evening.